Okay, welcome to this latest video from Exploring Modular Synths. And this time we're going to look at a more complex patch with a couple of different sound sources, a couple of different things going on together using the modular in conjunction with these two Mother 32s, using 3 sequencers, 5 oscillators, some other stuff, a couple of delays. I'm going to spend the first few minutes just walking us through the patch and then show you what it sounds like when it's all put together. So the first thing I did was I programmed these pressure points. And this pressure points has 4 pads, and each pad sends out 3 CVs as well as other information like gate information. According to these knobs, the CVs are controlled by these knobs. So when you press the first pad, it sends out signals according to where the knobs are out of this input. So the top row of knobs goes to this pink one, this input, this output, and these 3 go to the second row, these 4 rather, and the last 4 go to out through this third row. So when you press the first pad, it's going to send CV out according to where the knobs are, all 3 of these out of these 3 outputs. So if we just look at the first one, this output here, the pink one, is going into the Dixie. They're each going into 3 different oscillators. So this is going into the Dixie, which is a voltage-controlled oscillator. The second one is going into one of the Wiard Anti-oscillators right there, into the 1 volt per octave input for both the Dixie and the Wiard Anti-oscillator. And then the third one similarly is going to the third Wiard Anti-oscillator into the 1 volt per octave pitch input. So they're controlling the pitches of those 3 oscillators, and through doing that you can play chords if you tune them. So you've got 3-note triads. Those are then going out, and they are then going into this Optimix, which is a Vactral kind of low pass gate basically. And that's being gated by the gate output, which is in Brains, which is a supplementary module that you can connect to pressure points. So every time I press one of these pressure points, and through Brains is also sending out a gate that's going and opening up here, kind of like a VCA. It's opening up the Optimix, and it's allowing that sound to come out from the 3 oscillators. And if you didn't have that, then basically the oscillators would be playing all the time. You'd hit one note, they'd go to that pitch, and then they'd just stay on. And we don't want that. We want them only to stay on as long as we press this. And the gate will stay open as long as we press this, because it's going out here. So let's just hear what that sounds like just by itself. I'll turn off all the effects, and forgot to mention one thing. You'll also notice that that the 3 oscillators are also going into a filter, and they all have to be multed together to go into the filter. So all 3 outputs from the oscillators, and I'm only using the triangle outs from all 3, all the triangle outs are going into this mutable instrument links, which is a basically a mult here. Those 3 outputs are then all coming in here into the Borg filter, and the Borg filter is then being outputted into the Optimix. And the Borg filter's cutoff, if you can see that little blue light is coming in and out, that's because the cutoff is being controlled by a low frequency oscillator that's coming out of the Batumi here. The Batumi is a set of 4 low frequency oscillators, so you see they're oscillating at that rate at which the lights are coming on and off, and they're controlling the Borg. So that gives a little bit of movement to the chord. So you'll hear that when I hold down the chord, you hear that filter opening and closing. Right? Now, just to add a little bit of interest, we've got the output of that Optimix then going It's actually going into a triat, which is just kind of functioning like a mixer. That's a tri-attenuator. It just allows me to control the volume of that chord. And then that's going into the echophone, which is a delay. So if we turn that delay up, then you'll start to hear the repeats. Okay, so that's the main idea. Now we also have 3 sequencers running. We've got the Renee that's running, and we've got each of the Mother 32s has a sequencer, and those are also running. And you can actually see this one; those lights there show the speed of the sequencer on the lower Mother 32. And you can see those lights moving across there, slower sequence going on in the upper Mother 32. And those are all being clocked by our master clock source, which is Pamela's workout, which is sending out these triggers. And that's to make sure that they're all synced together and they're all in time. And basically we've got those trigger outputs coming out of the Pamela's workout, and they're both going into the it's that red one going into, you can't see it, but it's a tempo input there. And it's also the red chord going into the same tempo input on the top one. And it's coming out and going into the X clock input of the Renee and moving that Renee around. You see how it's kind of jumping around. So the Renee output then is going into another sound source, which is Braids, which is a digital oscillator. Braids is set to vowel mode, which emulates the sound of a person saying different vowels. And then that output is coming out on that second red chord. It's going down into maths, which is a function generator. It's going to the 4th channel of maths, and maths is set to create a little envelope, which allows that sound to kind of rise and fall. That's going into a boogie filter. And then that is then coming out into our VCA mixer, the color palette. Or rather, sorry, that's actually going into the triad also. So let's hear what that sounds like. So now what we're hearing is the Renee sequencing the Braids vowel. Now I've tuned the Braids oscillator, and I've set Renee on the Q menu. You can set Renee so that it is in the right key that you want to play in. So it should be in tune when we play the chords from the pressure points. Okay, now we also have one of the, I forgot to mention this, we have one of the outputs of Pamela's workout. One of those triggers is going into peaks. Peaks is by Mutable Instruments. It can do a lot of different things. It can be an envelope generator, 2 envelope generators, 2 LFOs. It can also be a drum, a kick drum and a snare drum. We're using the kick drum here. So that trigger is going into peaks to trigger the kick drum. And then the output is coming out of peaks into our VCA mixer, the color palette, our output. So when we open that up, that's what that kick drum sounds like. Now to give us some more rhythmic stuff, we've got the Moog 32, which is also being sequenced and clocked by Poma's Workout. That's being set to kind of a higher pitch rhythmic sound, and the output is coming out here into our mixer. So that's the sequence right here. See, we can change the envelope a little bit, make the decay a little bit tighter. Or make it longer. We also have the resonance up a bit, which is creating those, you know, swishy sounds. And I should mention that's also going into the dual looping delay, which is giving it that delay. So if it didn't have the delay sound, it would just sound like this. But because of the delay, it adds a really nice effect. Okay, so the last piece of the puzzle is the last Mother 32. And that's just kind of doing a low, slow-moving sequence with low notes. So let's hear what that sounds like. It's also coming into the color palette. Getting that low bass sound. Okay, so let's put that all together and just play with it a little bit, hear what it sounds like all together.